Kent Thompson, Artistic Director of the Denver Center Theater Company. August Osage County is by Tracy Letts. It's the Steppenwolf Theater production. It's the beginning of the national tour here. Tracy Letts wrote a play about a dysfunctional family in Oklahoma. Terrific play, very dark, very funny, very moving in the end. It will be in the Ellie Theater in late July, early August, and our subscribers will go to it as the first subscription show of the season.
It's a very loving family.
It's a very loving family. Mama has a pill-popping drinking problem, and it kind of goes downhill from there.
I thought you were describing a play that's later in the season.
That's
called
right.
Mama
Well,
Hated Diesels.
There you go. It could be the same thing.
We'll get to that.
The Voice Inheritance is a adaptation of a turn-of-the-century, 19th to 20th century play by Harvey Granville Barker, adapted by David Mamet. It's a very lean and dramatic adaptation. It's a play that could have been ripped from the headlines today, although it's a century old. It's about an English family, very well-to-do family, of lawyers, investment bankers, and a third-generation son who's a partner in the firm discovers that the first and second generation, namely his grandfather and his father, have been running the family investment banking business as a Ponzi scheme. And it kind of unravels from there. It has both humor and drama in it. It's a thriller, but it could have been taken. It's a sad reminder that what's happening today happened a century ago too. A Raisin in the Sun is the African-American play by Lorraine Hansberry, the first play by a woman of color on Broadway in the 1950s. A really inspirational story, drama about a family living in the south side of Chicago. And the family is in a disagreement about where they want to spend the insurance settlement money from the death of the father. The son would like to spend it investing in a liquor store, the daughter wants to go to medical school, and Mama wants to buy a house in an all-white suburb of Chicago. Well, I think it's still relevant today, especially now because a lot of people are trying to define what the American dream means in economic hardship. But it's also about an African-American family and the racial, economic, social barriers they overcame. I think it's a really remarkable play because in the end the family succeeds even though a lot of the money is lost. And so it's a drama that kind of reminds us about what is really at the heart of an American dream. And it's really about our families.
A very different family than, say, August Osage County.
Painfully and happily different in many ways.
Excellent. How about Well?
Well is a terrific play by Lisa Kron, who's a New York-based performance artist and playwright. And she created this play that she originally was in. And it moved to Broadway, actually. And Jane Howdyshell won all these awards playing the mother. And it's purportedly about Lisa Kron's relationship growing up with her mother and with wellness, with health, because her mother was both perhaps a hypochondriac, definitely an invalid her entire childhood. She herself had severe allergy problems as a young adult, but her mother was also the person who in Lansing, Michigan, integrated an entirely white neighborhood just because she thought she should. And the play is wonderful because it keeps breaking the fourth wall. In other words, that imaginary fourth wall where you pretend you're not being watched by several hundred people when you're on stage. The actors decide they like Lisa's mother, who's a character in the play, better than they like Lisa, the playwright performer. And Lisa's mother starts talking to the audience, wants to serve them soft drinks. It's really a wonderfully funny play, but it's also about the fact that you can't really escape your childhood, and you can't always define people by labels. They turn out to be more complex, especially people that are your mother.
Nice. Now, Absurd Person Singular.
Absurd Person Singular is a play by Ellen Ayckbourn, the great writer of so many British farces. We did his Season's Greetings a couple of years ago. This is another play set at Christmas about three couples set on three successive Christmas Eve in three different kitchens, in their three different kitchens. And they represent kind of the upwardly mobile couple, the middle class, we've made it finally couple, and then the upper class couple. And what's interesting is to watch them over the period of the 3 years. Very dark play, again, a kind of adult Christmas play. I describe it as the perfect antidote to A Christmas Carol, if you've had enough of that.
We'll save some time and just say you're going to do A Christmas Carol.
We will be doing Christmas Carol again. Most people don't know this. Tang is actually the orange drink that the space program discovered, and Laika was the dog the Soviets shot into space. They took him off the street, shot him into space, never to return. This is a wonderfully creative play by Latino playwright Rogelio Martinez, and it's really about the American-Soviet efforts over the last 30 years to do something impossible after the Cold War, which was to build the International Space Station. And it led to the creation of the Space Shuttle, which, by the way, ends officially, the Space Shuttle program, in 2010, when we'll be producing this play. Very imaginative play. There are ghosts in the International Space Station up there. There are two comic kind of choral narrators. There are a lot of split cuts, kind of short scenes that are cliffhangers. So it's a really interesting play, and I don't know how we're going to do weightlessness in the Space Theater, but you'll have to come and see it to find out.
And now, Eventide.
Eventide. Eventide was the novel that Kent Harif wrote as a sequel to Plainsong. It concerns some of the same characters in his fictional town of Holt, Colorado, on the Eastern Plains, including the two McFerrin brothers, who are the two ranchers, Raymond and Harold. And we've adapted it by the same adapter playwright, Eric Smeedel. So it's a sequel to our own dramatization of Plainsong 2 years ago. It's a wonderful play, very touching, a darker play, because it's about grief and loss, and how do you go on with your life after you lose somebody or something, your family, your brother, your best friend. And it's a very heartwarming play, but again, unsentimental and kind of bracing in the way that Kent Harif writes it. I mean, I think one of the brilliance of Kent Harif's novels about on the Eastern Plains of Colorado are the fact that they sort of redefine what the meaning of family and community is, and it's often not those people you're related to by blood. It's often those people you find in your life, in your community, that can become your family or your friend or your loved ones. Yeah. Mama Hated Diesels is a terrific musical review written by the Randall Myler and Danny Wheatman, who are the same guys that did It Ain't Nothing But the Blues, Love Janis, Fire on the Mountain. And this time they've gone around the country and they've had interviews with truckers, the people that drive those 16-wheelers across the country and bring us all the stuff that we as Americans that we urgently need. And they've taken the music of the truckers and their stories, and they've incorporated them into a musical review called Mama Hated Diesels.
Sounds like fun.
It is a lot of fun.
And why are you doing Othello in the smaller Space Theater?
What's interesting is, a lot of people know the opera and a lot of people know the play. The play, when you do it in a big stage, because it usually sells well, I think you feel like you have to turn it into an opera because it's in a big theater. You have to have a lot of scenery, you have to have a lot of action. It's actually a psychological drama. Almost all the scenes in the play are 2, 3, 4 people, no more. And the exciting thing about this is I think it puts the psychological tension between Iago and all the people he's trying to dupe, including Othello, and the kind of horrible consequences of where Othello's jealousy is, what it's turning into, the tragedy that Iago is kind of breeding. It puts it right in the room with you, so it becomes visceral, something you can't escape. So I'm very excited we're able to do it in the Space Theater in the round.
And announcing your final play of the season?
Mariela in the Desert, a wonderful play by Karen Zacharias, another Mexican-American Latina writer. A terrific play about a famous artist who has a daughter who's a painter also, and is becoming famous. And he's living in the desert with his wife, Mariela. They have a very tense marriage. They're dysfunctional the way an Albee marriage would be, kind of funny, dark, bitter. He's really had a dry spell for the last 15 or 20 years since his most famous painting came out. And the play is kind of a mystery about, did he really paint that painting or did someone else? And what is the story of this spirit of an 18-year-old son that keeps appearing? Is that a real character, a real person? Is it a ghost? And so it's a wonderfully kind of magical play set in the desert. But it also deals with what artists go through in the creation of how they work and what they work and what price it exacts on families and on people.